John Marshall arrived at Campbell in the fall of 1980 to join a golf team that was in its early years of competing at the NCAA Division I level. While competing under 3 different head coaches, John not only helped lay the groundwork for what would become a mid-major college golf powerhouse program, but he also discovered a career path. He graduated in 1984 and soon after enrolled in Campbell's law school. He's been practicing law since 1989 and in the fall of 2023 was sworn into the United States Supreme Court bar. Along the way, John has raised a family, remained an avid and competitive golfer, become a regular podcast contributor, and he also plays the guitar. My name is Stan Cole, class of 1987, and this is the next installment of Tales from the Creek, where we visit with the people who've made this place special over the years. I'm delighted to be joined today by former Campbell golf standout John Marshall. Welcome to Tales from the Creek, John, and thanks for taking the time to visit with us.
It's my pleasure, Stan. Thanks for having me.
John, let's just start at the beginning. Tell us about growing up, where you were, and how you got your start in golf.
So my father and mother met in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I was born in Wilmington, North Carolina. My grandfather was a golfer. My father was a golfer. He played golf at Western Maryland College. And we actually lived on the 3rd fairway of the Wilmington Municipal Golf Course when I was born, and we lived there until I was about 4. And my mother started me with cutting orange juice cans in half and burying them in the ground with toy golf clubs as I watched the golfers pass by my house, imitating their habits, some of which were good and some of which were not good. And then from there, I was exposed to the game by my grandfather, who was a member of that particular golf course. And I played everything else I could possibly play too. But as I got older, I narrowed my focus on golf. And by 12 or 13, I was pretty serious about it.
Is that when you started playing in tournaments, or how old when you started playing tournament golf?
I was 13 years old when I played my first tournament. I had really gotten serious about it my 6th grade year. And started dropping sports. My dad did me a great service. He sat me down at about that time and said, "John, you're a good athlete, but if you want to be really good or great at something, you need to narrow your focus." And I dropped everything but golf and basketball. I still played some basketball in the wintertime. My 3 favorite sports were tennis, baseball, and golf. And unfortunately, they were all played the same season, so I had to make some hard choices, but they were good. It was a good choice.
The Wilmington Municipal Course, a Donald Ross design, still a great. It had a redesign there, a couple of update a little while ago. It's still a great value and a fun track to get around. Have you been down there to play that late anytime recently?
I went down there about 2 years ago. I took 2 buddies of mine down there. I told them what a fun golf course it was to play. And we went down and played one Saturday and went out to dinner that night and made a weekend of it. But yeah, it's a fun golf course. They did a really great job with the renovation. It gets a tremendous amount of play, but it's nostalgic for me, and I enjoy going down there and playing.
John, what was your junior career like? Playing tournament golf in the 70s. What was that? What was like for you?
So there was no such thing as the AJGA back then. And there was a lot of clubs in Eastern North Carolina, and I was living in Kinston and Henderson primarily, my golf growing up years. A lot of local clubs would have a junior tournament that summer. Falling Creek in Kinston had one. Happy Valley in Wilson had one. Wildwood Country Club in Raleigh had one. And then the CGA was starting to really get their junior golf program going. And so between those potential places to play, I would cobble together 6 or 8 tournaments a summer, and went through the junior, circuit, 14, the 13 to 14, then the 15 to 16, then the 17 to 18. I was lucky. I picked up golf relatively quickly when I started playing serious about it. I broke 70 for the first time when I was 14, and had some reasonably good success playing junior golf up until the time it was time for me to go to college.
Who were your golfing heroes?
Well, like everybody else, I mean, I was in awe of Jack Nicklaus and all that he accomplished, but I was really more a Tom Watson guy than anybody else. It so happens I've had um, a really nice encounter with Tom Watson. Um, he used to play in the SAS Pro-Am up in Cary, and I got invited to play in the Pro-Am one year and met him on the putting green because I had access to get to where I wanted to go to, and told him that I had enjoyed watching his successes, and much like Rory McIlroy this spring in the Masters, I was sometimes less than happy with his failures, but pulled for him anyway, and he was probably my biggest hero.
What was it about his game, his demeanor? What was it that attracted you, do you think?
I liked the fact that he was a psychology major from Stanford, and he always seemed to have a positive attitude. He never complained. Um, his caddy, Bruce Edwards, I think summarized it best. Bruce Edwards caddied for him a long time. He also caddied for Greg Norman. He's dead now of ALS. He said one time the difference between Tom Watson and Greg Norman was that when Greg Norman might hit it in a divot, he would complain about the fact he hit it in a divot, whereas Tom Watson would say, "Hey, Bruce, watch this."
Wow. John, when did you think that, hey, I can take this golf and play on the college level? When did that, when did you realize that?
Well, I think from the ninth grade on, I was intent on getting a golf scholarship and playing golf somewhere in college. I think probably until about the 11th grade, that was probably more of a pipe dream than a possible reality. I had a really good summer between my sophomore and junior year of high school, and made it to the quarterfinals of the North Carolina Junior. The following summer, I finished third in the Carolinas Junior. I finished second at the Old North State Junior at Wildwood Country Club. I had some other successes in some other tournaments. And I think that was really when I really thought I had an opportunity to do that.
What was it about Campbell? What other colleges did you consider before? And then what was the determining factor for you to choose Campbell?
Well, by that time, we had moved to Henderson, and my golf pro is Jimmy Gherkin, who is the member of the Campbell Hall of Fame. And Jimmy was a great player and was tremendously good to me. My job at the Henderson Country Club was to pick up the range, and for that I got paid $10 a week and got to hit all the golf balls I wanted to. I would say I was a below average employee. Of course, it was a below average range, but I lost a lot of golf balls. But that was an influence on me. I think also I wanted to go someplace where I could play. It was, to me, I was lightly recruited by some bigger schools, but I think it was obvious to me that if I wanted to go someplace and play all 4 years, I needed to go to a smaller school. And I looked at several, and I really narrowed it down to UNC Charlotte, to Guilford College, and to Campbell. And I think what led me to Campbell was Jimmy was an influence on that. I've listened to this podcast a number of times, and I've heard a number of Wendell Carr stories, and I've got my Wendell Carr story. Coach Carr was the athletic director when I don't remember this for sure, but I'm sure I probably sent a letter to get some interest. And he contacted me. He had me down several times with my father, and I just genuinely liked him. Campbell didn't have a coach at the time, but he made promises to me that they wanted to get their program back up to where it was in the late 60s and early 70s, when it was an NAIA championship team. That was when Jimmy was here, and Sammy Brewer and Jay Overton and Scott Irby and the Bun Boys, all of whom I knew. And so when it came, and then also you had the facility. Keith Hills was a great facility. and a great place to be able to play golf that I would have access to. And so, on balance, when I looked at all of that, um, I made the decision to sign a letter of intent. And Coach Carr was a big influence on my decision to do that.
3 different coaches in your 4-year career. Tell us a little bit about each of them and what stands out about that.
So my first coach was his name was Doug Gordon, and Coach Gordon's dad had been a longtime coach at Ohio Wesleyan College, and we I didn't really have an opportunity to meet Coach Gordon until I showed up in August of 1980. But he had called me and told me I was going to be his coach, and he was young, probably 24-ish. He had been an assistant at University of Alabama for Conrad Railing, and my recruiting class was myself, John Joslin from Raleigh, and Todd Harris from Rural Hall, right outside of Winston-Salem. And then there was some players who had been here previously, and so we got here, and Coach Gordon, I mean, it was obvious he knew how to coach a golf team. He'd been around a golf coach all his life, and been around Conrad Railing at Alabama, who had coached a lot of great players like Jerry Pate, and we had a great year. I thought it's a huge adjustment for any athlete to go from the high school level to the college level. And there's a lot of reasons for that. The competition's tougher, the golf courses are tougher. You've been thrown into an environment that is foreign to you. You're not living at home anymore. You're living at school. The whole environment's different. And I didn't play very good my first semester, but my second semester, I kind of got my feet under me and started playing really, 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 really well. And Coach Gordon was a big part of that. I think he was a coach's coach, and he related well to the players, and he instilled confidence. He certainly instilled confidence in me at times when I didn't have a whole lot of confidence myself.
Following Coach Gordon, he departs, and Jerry Smith comes in, and I knew Jerry as well, and not only was he a great coach and educator, but just as good of a human being that walked this earth. What are your memories of Coach Smith?
So when Coach Gordon announced shortly after the end of my freshman year that he was going to take a job at Georgia Southern, he actually asked me to go with him, and my father and I talked about it a lot. We actually visited Coach Gordon. He was doing a golf school at Pine Needles, but on balance, we didn't have anything like a transfer portal back then. If you were going to change, because I had a letter of intent, I would have had to sit out a year. I wasn't real impressed with Georgia Southern's academics, or my dad wasn't very impressed with it. And I didn't want to do 5 to get in 4. I didn't want to have to go to school 5 years. So I despite my admiration for Coach Gordon, I just couldn't do that. And so shortly thereafter, Coach Smith, who had kind of was a de facto unpaid assistant coach for the golf team my freshman year, was made the golf coach. And the first thing he did was call me up. And Coach Smith, and Coach Smith is truly a coach, and it wouldn't matter if he was coaching badminton or golf or football or anything between. He's got the sort of the Ted Lasso coaching instincts, and he called me up and just could not have made a better impression on me. Told me how proud he was of how I played the first year, how happy he was he's going to have an opportunity to be the golf coach, how I was going to be an important part of that team, and he was looking for leadership and good play, and I mean, just all the stuff that you wanted to hear. And when I got off the phone with him, I was ready to go hit a tackling dummy. It was great, and so he took over the team. We had another crop of recruits. Some of the folks from the last year were gone, and he was he. I had a real bond with Coach Smith. I liked the way he ran a tight ship. I liked the way he required us to be disciplined. I liked the fact that he had some organized practices. I liked the way he tried to get our scheduling right. And I liked the way he treated us on the road. It was all business. And for me, I was there to play golf, and that was all I was there to do, and that's what I wanted to get focused on. And I really enjoyed having him as a coach.
And then by the time your senior year rolled around, Coach Smith had moved over to take the head basketball coaching position here. And Danny Roberts, who had coached Jimmy Gherkin and Sammy Brewer and Scott Irby and those guys, the Bunn brothers, he returned for 5 more seasons to be the head golf coach. What was Danny like as your coach then?
Danny was also a very good coach and had experience with golf and knew me. I had gotten to know Coach Roberts my first 3 years at Campbell, just by virtue of the fact that Campbell's a small place and Danny had an interest in the golf team. He was a little more hands off than what Coach Smith was. He would let you be you, and that was fine too, because at that point, I was on my own program, and he made me co-captain, or actually captain of the golf team. One funny Coach Roberts story: we had a hotshot freshman show up that freshman year, by senior year, and he wasn't playing very well, and he couldn't make it through a qualifier. And the father called Coach Roberts and wanted to come down here and talk about it. And Coach Roberts made me sit in there with them in the meeting. And the father comes in there and he pleads his case. He says, my son's this, my son's that, my son's something else, and he ought to be playing. And Coach Roberts said, well, your son needs to play better. And for me, that's something that's a lesson I've taken with me for the rest of my life. If you've got something you need to do and you're not doing it well, you need to do it better. If you can't do it better, you might need to find something else to do. And so, anyway, that particular hotshot freshman transferred at the end of the semester. But, like I said, it's a big jump from high school to college golf, and it's not for everybody. And if you're a coach of a team and you're a leader of men, you need to have the best team that you can have on the field at any given time, and Coach Roberts was interested in that.
John, as far as golf is concerned, what were a few of your best memories of your time here at Campbell?
Well, one memory, and I think I've told you this story when Coach Smith died. I got, despite the fact that he gave me the greatest pep talk imaginable that summer, I got to Campbell and I had been playing really well, and I just wasn't playing very well that first couple of weeks back at school. And we had a qualifier, and I missed it. And Coach Smith grabs me after practice one day, and he says, you're my number one player, but you didn't make it through the qualifier. I want to take you, and if I take you, I'm going to get a lot of grief. But because you were MVP last year and you were my number one player, I think I've got one pass. But I need to tell you, and you need to tell me honestly where you think your game is. And I said, well, Coach, I think I've turned the corner. I think it's going to be okay. I think if you take me, I'll help the team. And so it was down at Methodist College at Cypress Lakes, and he took me, and I won the tournament. And it didn't make some people happy that he did take me, but it further instilled the confidence that Coach Smith and my confidence in him as a leader and as a coach, and helped my confidence. And I ended up having a real good sophomore year. And I don't know that would have happened had that not taken place, but I always appreciated the fact that he did that. The other part of it, I played every match. And I got to play with a lot of really good players that I probably would have never gotten to play golf with. For example, Coach Gordon brought his team, the Georgia Southern team, up to ECU and played in a tournament in the spring of would have been 1982. And on his team was a player that you may have heard of. His name was Jody Mudd.
Mm-hmm.
And Jody Mudd had won the U.S. Pub Links that year when he was going to play in the Masters about a month later. And I got to play with him. I was playing number one, and he was playing number one at Georgia Southern. I got to play with him. And I, first 3 or 4 holes, I kind of wondered what the hoopla was about. And then all of a sudden, he went off and shoots 67, and I shoot like 72, and I feel like I'm shooting 80.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty obvious to me that he was going somewhere with his golf game, and maybe I was not. But I've got to play with other players like that too. I got to play with Davis Love III. I'm trying to think. I'm forgetting folks right now. But anyway, I got to play with a lot of really good players that I would never have gotten to play with.
Any courses that y'all played that stand out in your mind as, wow, I get to play on this course and represent my team?
My freshman year, that spring, we went and played golf at West Point.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And the weather was better than I thought it would have been. It was April on the Hudson Valley in New York, but the weather was good. It was a wonderful trip. It was a great opportunity to go someplace I would have never gotten to have gone and played. We went and played in Macon, Georgia, at a golf course down there that was really, really good in my freshman year, and I played well down there. You tend to remember and like the ones that you played well at. We hosted 2 tournaments a year here at Keith Hills, a spring and a fall tournament, and we played out at at Virginia Tech at Blacksburg. Several years. We played we played at Furman. I played with Brad Faxon in Furman. And that was a great opportunity. So we played good schedules. We had a good time. We had the team members got along well, and we spent a lot of time in the van, which is part of that life.
Right. John, how about outside of golf? I know your focus was kind of laser focused on your craft and your sport, but what other memories do you have of your undergraduate days beyond the golf? I guess that would have been at night or early in the morning, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had my fun. We had several hangouts we used to go to. We'd call it mandatory golf meetings at Shaggers Beach Club in Dunn, North Carolina. And we go to Raleigh some, and we made our own fun down here in Booth Creek, as you know. Somebody designated every year where the spot was going to be, and the spot would rotate from place to place, and we had a lot of time together to have fun with that. School, class was. I missed some class as a result of being gone playing golf, but I was a business major, and the business department was pretty cooperative with me in terms of how I had to manage my schedule, and I had a full college life, and that to me was the best thing about it. A lot of really good friends. I was really focused on golf, but it was a full college life.
You've been in Eastern North Carolina and in and around the area, whether it's for golf or socially. Can you explain to our listeners how Bowie's Creek in 1980 differs from Bowie's Creek in 2025?
Well, they've done a lot of building since 1980. The campus has changed remarkably. There is, the law school, which was here, is now in Raleigh, but they've taken those buildings. They've done different things with them. They've built the convocation center. They've built the student center, the Lundy Fetterman School of Business. Where all our classes were in D. Rich, and now all the classes are over there. The actual infrastructure has changed remarkably. And if somebody's not been here since they got through about the time I graduated from college, they'd be shocked to see that. Football's here. We didn't have football. We did beat Carolina one time when I was in undergraduate school, and we all had Campbell 3, UNC 0 bumper stickers that we drove around with on our cars. But I think that would be the most remarkable thing. The student life is obviously much better in terms of the variety of things that you've got to do and reasons to be here on the weekend and things like that. So yeah, it's a different school. I'm I am proud of what they've done because a lot of schools have their footprint has shrank in those 45 years, and the Campbell footprint has expanded.
John, you're one of many guests that I've asked about the community and the area and the physical part of the place. You know, I believe it was Wanda Watkins talks about the space where the Lundy Fetterman Business School sits now, which is kind of on the northwest corner of campus. That that was an intramural field, and I think they might have played varsity softball there. You have a different memory of that open field.
I do. Keith Hills did not have the practice facility that it has now. And so the practice facility was in back of what was then called the Robin Hood Pro Shop.
Hmm.
And it was a very small teeing area, and it went down into a valley and across a ditch and back up again. And it was much like Jimmy Gherkin's range in Henderson, North Carolina. It was a great place to lose range balls. And so, um, but we were limited on what we could do with that because if you got 10 or 12 people out there digging trenches with 7-irons, it wouldn't take long to tear that place up.
Right.
And so we had to figure out other things to do. And my solution to it was to get a wire basket full of golf balls and a tube. And I hit golf balls over on women's campus where the Lundy Fetterman School of Business is now a lot. It was big enough that I could hit whatever club I wanted to. And I had to pick up my own golf balls, but that was a great way for me to practice. And I spent a lot of time out there doing exactly that.
John, when did you decide or come to the realization that professional golf was probably not going to be your career path?
I didn't play as well my senior year as I probably would have liked to. I had much like my year between my sophomore and junior year of college, I had a really good year, summer between my junior and senior year of college. Um, and I just didn't play as well as I wanted to. And I can't tell you exactly why. I did play better my spring semester than I did my fall semester. But I had friends of mine who were older than I was, who I thought were better players than I was, who were out there trying to knock around the mini tours, and they were not having a lot of success. And I just, to me, I had some. I mean, a part of me said, "Well, John, if you do it, you'll get better, and maybe you'll get good enough that it will have been a good choice." Kind of like Tom Watson was. Tom Watson was not a great amateur player before he went on the tour. But the realist in me made me think that you may not that may not be what you want to do. And moreover, I really did not want to do that and be 27 or 8 years old and washed out and no real work experience. And then what do I do from there? So I came to the realization at some point during my senior year, such that I started interviewing for jobs my spring semester of my senior year, and got a job with First Citizens Bank in their management training program. And so when I graduated from college in May, I had a job to start in June, and that's what I did. And I don't regret that decision at all, both from a golf perspective and from a professional perspective.
Our guest today on Tales from the Creek is Campbell two-time graduate and former golf standout John Marshall. John, tell us about what led you to enter law school.
So I went through the training program at First Citizens Bank, and that was really the first time in my adult, to the extent I was an adult then, 22, my adult life where golf was not my primary focus. I had, I'd play on the weekends or play with my buddies when I could, but when I went to work there, I treated it like it was a serious endeavor. And it was a competitive environment because I had 10 people in my management training class, and we were vying for spots to go wherever it is they wanted us to go. And how you did in that class would help determine, where you might go. So I took it very seriously. And I enjoyed it and got through it what I thought reasonably well. And I went to work. They sent me to Sanford, North Carolina, and gave me a branch to run. And then about 8, 9 months later, they moved me to another branch. In the meantime, I met my first wife, Lisa, and she had a brother-in-law who was an attorney out in Dare County, Charlie Aycock, also a Campbell grad, not law school grad, but undergraduate. And I talked to him a little bit about it, and I wanted, I felt like it may be something I wanted to do. I had a couple buddies of mine that were in law school, and I actually attended Saturday morning class for a first year law student, just to see what it was all about, and sat in there and watched what was going on. And I had never been a really great student. I'd always been so focused on golf that I did enough to get by and could do enough to get by. But so the concept of going to law school, though it was something I wanted to do, just kind of seemed a little bit out of reach based on my prior academic performance. But I sat in that class, and I could understand what they were talking about. And so I took the LSAT and applied and got in. It was not without some talking to by my parents. I had Lisa and I had decided that we were going to get married, and so Thanksgiving of 1985, I went home to Henderson for Thanksgiving, and I announced to my parents that I had a plan, and that my plan was that I was going to take the LSAT the next Saturday, first Saturday in December, that I was going to apply to law school, that if I got into law school, I was going to quit my job, and that Lisa and I were going to get married in January of 1987. And I thought that was a great plan. My parents apparently were not so enamored with my great plan, and it became a topic of conversation at the Marshall household the following week when I went back to work in Sanford, to the point that my dad called me up on Wednesday, and long-distance phone call, which he never made long-distance phone calls because they cost money. And so he said, you're taking the LSAT on Saturday? I said, yes, I am. And he said, where's that going to be? I said, at the campus of NC State University. He said, when are you going to be done? I said, noon. He said, you meet me at Daryl's on Hillsborough Street. Well, I didn't know what was up, but something was up. And so sure enough, I walked in there, and he was there waiting for me. And he led with a painful fact, and that was, as my academic career had never been such that there was any indication that I might have any success in law school. And that was true. But I pled my case, and my case was basically, Dad, my golf's over with. I've always focused on golf. I'm not focusing on golf anymore. And I put the same effort into that I put into my golf. And with some reservations, he nodded and said he would talk to my mother, and that we would have their full support. And so when I got in, I effectuated my plan, and thankfully I got through law school without any problems. In fact, did academically a lot better than I did in undergraduate school, which usually it's the other way around. I realized that there was a transferable skill between playing golf and studying, because they're both solitary pursuits. And I just treated law school like I did golf, and worked really hard at it, and it turned out well.
You mentioned folks like Wendell Carr, Doug Gordon, Jerry Smith, having the confidence in you as a golfer. Who are some of the folks associated with the law school that made that opportunity possible for you?
Well, without a doubt, former professor, former dean, now retired Pat Hetrick. The Campbell Law School, you are required to submit to an interview if you want to be admitted to law school. And so I interviewed with then Professor Hetrick, later Dean Hetrick. And he looked at my transcript, and he looked at my LSAT, and he said, well, it's obvious you can do the work, but your transcript leaves a little bit to be desired. As a matter of fact, anything that you've ever been required to do any reading in, you really haven't done that well at. And I said to him, which is the truth, that, I missed a tremendous amount of class in undergraduate school. And a lot of those classes where the lower grades were in literature classes or things that required a lot of reading. And I said, but I can tell you, I'm grind it out if I go to get in law school. And he then asked me if I'd be interested in doing the summer program, the performance-based acceptance program. And I told him, I said, I just can't do it because I got to quit a job to do this, and I can't do it on an open prayer. And so sure enough, about a week later, I got a letter from the law school that said I was in, and I didn't have to go to the PBAT program. So, I owe him a huge debt of gratitude for him being willing to take a chance on me. And when I finished school, he was the revising author of the leading real estate treatise in North Carolina, and I took a copy of the new book to get signed by him on the way out of town, figuratively speaking, after the bar exam. And he wrote me a nice note, and it means a lot to me that he did that, and certainly I would have never gotten through it without him.
John, what does the Campbell Law School do so well to prepare its students for the, quote, real world?
You know, I don't know what it's like at other law schools, but if you go into Campbell Law School to spend a lot of time talking about philosophy and jurisprudential principles and things like that, that's probably not the place for you. Campbell, at the time I was there, and I think it's still the case, trains North Carolinians to be North Carolina lawyers. And you can't be a North Carolina lawyer if you don't pass the bar exam. Their curriculum, their approach to how they educate law students was very practical, almost like a trade school, so to speak. And the curriculum that you were required is a small school, so they didn't have enough student body volume to teach a lot of electives. So there were not a lot of electives, and it was a core curriculum. But when you got through with that, and assuming that you worked hard, you were more than ready to pass the bar exam. And that's why their bar passage rate has been so good, and why you've had so many folks that have graduated from Campbell Law School who practice law in North Carolina who've been successful. The other thing that they did back then, and it's less so now, they spent a significant amount of time in courtroom training, learning the practical skills of how to try a case. And I tried 6 of them my first year of practicing law, and I was ready to do it because of the folks at Campbell.
Wow.
Hey Camel fans, this is Braxton Harris, and I've got one question for you. Are you ready for game day? Well, get your game face on because Campbell's 2025 football season is here. We're bringing the energy, the grit, and the passion, and we want you to be right there with us. But hey, game day is just the beginning. You want to make a real impact? Then it's time to step up and join the Fighting Camel Club. Being a part of the Fighting Camel Club means you become the team behind the team, fueling scholarships, training, and academic success for not just our football athletes, but all 21 of our sports. When you join, you're not just a fan, you're a game changer. So what do you say, Camel Nation? Let's make a difference together. Join the Fighting Camel Club today and help us build champions on the field, in the classroom, and beyond.
John, you get out and you graduated in 1989, and you moved back to Kinston to take a job, right?
Yes,
You're still at Kinston, right?
I am.
And and it's kind of interesting. And I'm one that now I guess I'm starting year 37 at Campbell, of working here full time, and people want to talk to me about career advice and movement and all these things. And I said, well, if you're looking to climb the ladder, and that ladder, the rungs go different places, I'm probably not the person to talk to. I can talk to you about, things that make your career good, and other things like that. But, in this world that it seems like it's a grass is greener elsewhere. What has kept you where you are for all these years and built your career there?
Well, when I got out, unlike when I graduated from undergraduate school and I was begging for jobs, because my grades were so good in law school, I was interviewing and I had people that were interested, which was a new concept for me. 5 years difference, who would have imagined? But I did not want to go to work for a huge law firm in a big city. I didn't want to really go to work for a really, really small law firm because I had worked for a small law firm and done some folks down there that hired me during the school year and during the summers, and I loved it. But I wanted to have to be part of a decent sized law firm that can handle some of the things that I really wanted to handle. And and Kinston had one like that. I was familiar with Kinston. Um, I knew what it was like to live in a smaller town, be married, have a child, want to raise a child, be involved in the community, be involved in a church. Some people might say, well, you just want to be a bigger fish in a smaller pond. Well, maybe so. But I've always looked at the practice of law as a privilege and not a right. And I think you've got an obligation to put some wood on the community woodpile wherever you live.
Mm-hmm.
And folks that are educated and that have certain skills, doesn't necessarily have to be a lawyer, it could be any skill, can have an impact on their community. And I wanted to have an impact on mine. I wanted to be part of a community. And so Kinston has fit that bill, and I've been there, and I've never really wanted to go anywhere else. The law firm's grown. My practice has evolved over time. And, very little of my work is actually done in Lenoir County. My desk is in Lenoir County, but I do work from the Virginia line to the South Carolina line. But for me, I've been able to do so many things. I was president of the board of trustees at Parrott Academy for 3 years and handed my best friend's daughters their diploma and my daughter their diploma at graduation. I've been on every board in the community that you can imagine. I think myself and a lot of other folks have tried to, folks in towns in eastern North Carolina have faced a lot of headwinds in the last 36 years with the tobacco manufacturing, textiles, and things like that. And they've had to reinvent themselves. And, people have got to bow their neck and stand up and do what they got to do to help their communities. And for me, that was part of what my dad did, part of what my mom did. And I just felt like I've always felt like it's a great place to live, and I've never really thought about being anywhere else.
John, about 18 months ago, you were sworn into the United States Supreme Court bar. For the uninitiated, what does that mean?
Well, I tell people it's probably not as big a thing as it sounds, but it is an honor, and it was a great privilege. There's an admission process, and part of it's just perfunctory in the sense that you've got to have been practicing law for a certain period of time, and then you've got to go through the process of getting all your documents together and your recommendations together and all that to get it done. But it's something I had thought about doing for some time, and I just never could get around to doing it. And Kelly, my wife now, and I decided that we were going to do it, and we spent the weekend up in D.C. It was a great privilege to be able to do it. Politics are what politics are, and I know there's a lot going on today that a lot of people could say things about in either direction. But the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land, and it is from where the law comes. And the pomp and circumstance of being admitted was really nice. There was 10 or 12 of us that got admitted at the same time. There's an introduction process where somebody actually stands up and introduces you to the court. If your name's John Marshall, you stand out a little bit when you get introduced to the United States Supreme Court, because the first Chief Justice was Chief Justice John Marshall, who's no relation. But as the person who introduced our group to the court, you get introduced one by one, and you stand up, and Chief Justice John Roberts is sitting up on the bench, and he's doing what he does and checking things off, and he hears that name and it kind of looks at me and grins, and I sit down, and so it was a great experience. But I'll probably never argue a case at the Supreme Court, but it was an honor to be able to do it, and I have privileges. If I want to go up there and listen to an argument sometime, I can go in there if I make a reservation without any problem, because I'm a member of the Supreme Court bar.
And Marshall, of course, is another great name in the Supreme Court because of Justice Thurgood Marshall. And I kind of equate, things, and I've worked in sports and sports journalism all my life, and I'm a big sports fan and stuff like this, and that's got to feel like a Hall of Fame moment. It's like you're walking into Cooperstown in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and there's Babe Ruth's plaque and Jackie Robinson's plaque, and you walk around these places and you think about all the people who've set foot in the path that you're tried, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, you've got the portraits up there are awe-inspiring to go. The building itself is beautiful, and the portraits are wonderful. And if you really sit down and think about all the cases that have been argued before that court, um, big ones, little ones, in between ones, um, it's an awe-inspiring place to be. I was really impressed with the quality of the advocacy of the lawyers. I listened to a case I didn't know anything about before I got there. Uh, but I was impressed with the quality, and I was impressed with the preparedness of the justices on the bench. Really tough questions. As somebody who goes to court and gets asked tough questions, I was impressed with the fact that they were so prepared that they asked the tough questions. I was impressed with the lawyers who answered them.
John, you mentioned, things that you've been busy doing the last 3.5, 4 decades. Raising a family is one of them. Tell us a little bit about your family.
So I've got a daughter, Kathleen, who is married to. She lives in Wilmington. Her husband, George, is a chef at Kipo's in Wilmington, and they live there. And she's got a real estate license, and she does property management. She doesn't do sales. They've lived there for about 3 years now. They've been married about 5. No grandkids yet. My wife, Kelly, is a lifelong employee or adult lifelong employee with the Environmental Protection Agency, at least for a little while longer. And so she's getting ready to take early retirement and exercise some different options. So yeah, it's very, very fortunate. Kids are happy, and when kids are happy, you're happy.
Absolutely. How often do you get out to? You've stayed in contact with the game. How often do you get out to play and practice and work on your golf game?
So I play weekends and practice when it's daylight savings time. I might practice a night or two each week. When I got through with law school, I didn't play much in law school, but when I got through with law school in my late 20s and early 30s, I got back before Kathleen was born. I got back on the circuit and played some tournaments and finished third in the state am one year. Got on the Virginia Carolinas team matches one year. Played some local invitationals, Henderson Invitational, Jimmy's tournament, and Wilson the Gold Leaf Invitational, just stuff like that. And I enjoy playing competitive golf. Then life kind of comes at you, and you just don't have time to spend on tournament golf.
Mm-hmm.
You can still play recreational golf, and I've played some a little bit of tournament golf from here and there along the way. But my game is pretty much all recreational, and sometimes it's really good, and sometimes like today it wasn't very good at all. But that's just the way it is, and I enjoy playing it. Golf's been great to me. I've gotten to go a lot of neat places. I've got a group of friends. We travel overseas every 2 years and go play, and we've been over 5 times, and we'll go over again next year. Scotland, England, Ireland, that type of stuff. So, golf's a great game. It is. You meet the best people. You go to the neatest places. You have the best experiences, and I've been so fortunate to have golf in my life, and golf has given me a whole lot more than I've given it.
John, what are some of your favorite places that you've been to that when you come back and you tell people you wouldn't believe this, or I found the coolest spot here? What in your travels?
Well, I've been fortunate to go to a lot of nice places that I probably didn't deserve to go, and the ones like this that I'll reel off first are places like I played Augusta National one time. I played Pebble Beach. I played all the good courses in North Carolina that you can think of. I went to Pebble Beach with my dad when he was my age and I was 30 something. And then I've gotten to the trips overseas, we've talked about this amongst our group. That has been the most enriching experience in golf wise of anything I've done. The camaraderie, the bonding, and all that stuff is just fantastic. All of the golf courses. We went to Scotland 14, we went to Ireland in 16, we went to Scotland in 18, we went to England in 22. COVID kind of knocked us off a little bit for that, but we went to Whistling Straits one year in the middle of that, and then we went back to Ireland this past summer 24. I can't say that any one is better than the other. So like trying to ask you which child do you love more than the other, but they're all great, and the cultural experiences are wonderful in the sense that the game originated over there. It's viewed differently over there. It's more of an everyman's game. They love Americans. They're happy that we're there. We actually subsidize their golf operations. It's relatively inexpensive for a Scot or an Irish person or even an English person to be a member of most clubs that you would want to go over there and play, like, the old course or the new course or even Royal Dornoch. I mean, you can be a member over at Royal Dornoch for $800 a year. And it's the top 3 golf course in the world. It's just great. But the cultural experiences, the way we attack it is we don't go over there and blitzkrieg 36 holes a day for 5 days and come home. We stay longer, we play less, and we try to experience the culture along the way. And to me, that's what makes it so enriching. It's sitting in a pub, the Brazen Head in Dublin, Ireland, that was started in 900. I mean, it's been there forever. Being in the Dunvegan and St. Andrews, and they've got pictures over every square inch of every wall and ceiling in there of people that have been there. You and I would all know that have had their picture taken with Jack and Sheila, who run the joint. Riding the Ring of Kerry to Waterville and playing golf at Waterville, where Payne Stewart and Mark O'Meara and Tiger Woods played there in the late 90s, and there's a statue of Payne Stewart on the first tee at Waterville. I mean, there's the cultural experiences of going and participating and seeing that kind of stuff is really, really remarkable.
In your young days, golf helped you travel around the state and the southeastern United States, but even beyond golf, you still enjoy travel. You tell us about your recent trip.
Well, so we had back in the early teens, 2012, 13, something like that. We had a core group of 3 couples, and we were all getting to be in our early 50s, and kids were educated, and we decided that we wanted to go do some stuff. And so we went to Italy in 16, and we went to basically Tuscany and Florence and wine country and that type of stuff. In 19, we went back to Italy and went to Sorrento and Rome and the Amalfi Coast. In 22, we went to Quebec City in Canada. And then one of our group, who was my age, developed glioblastoma and died. And so I wouldn't take going. I'm so glad we all got to do that, because it's something that much like a golf trip, when you bond together and spend 8 or 10 days together and go do something like that, you develop relationships that are really, really close and important. And so Kelly and I still like to do it. And so we went to France about 2 months ago for an anniversary trip, and had a great time over there. Went to the D-Day beaches, and as I think I told you today, if you stand on Omaha Beach and not proud to be an American, you don't have a red corpuscle in your circulatory system. It's an awesome experience. And again, I think the same sort of thing. I think you learn a lot by getting to go places and realizing that there's a big wide world out there with people all over the world who are facing the same stresses and dilemmas and problems that we all face as Americans, just in their own way in their own country. And we all are one big world that we kind of need to help take care of ourselves.
Shifting gears here, John, share with us a little bit about your musical background, and especially, you've told me you took up the guitar at a relatively young age.
I did. I started playing when I was 10. I've had a sporadic guitar career. I started playing at 10, and and I took lessons until I was about 14, maybe, and played some during high school, and then really put it down. I did play a little bit in the Marshbanks house in my senior year when I lived in the Marshbanks with my friend Bill Whitley. Fig Newton was the
Right. And Fig's a guitarist.
Fig's the guitarist. I played his guitar. I didn't have mine there with me. And then I really put it down for a long time, and I picked it back up in my 40s and played some then, and got a better guitar, and I really enjoyed playing. I hadn't played it much lately. My wife was commuting to Raleigh some before COVID, and she's worked at home since then. And so as I told you today, I need to find a place to go play. But I enjoy playing it. It's a lot of fun. Last time I really did anything meaningfully, I played at church about a year and a half ago. But I enjoy it. It's a great stress relief, and it's one of those things. It's kind of like an old friend. If you hadn't seen him in a while, it doesn't take long for you to catch up. And so it's brought a lot of joy and happiness to me over the course of the years.
Who are some of your favorite musicians over the years?
Well, I love the Eagles, and I'm so sad when Glenn Frey died. And I'm a huge Robert Earl Keen fan, and really anything sort of Texas outlaw country, I really, really enjoy.
What's the song that when you pick up the guitar, what's the first song that you kind of automatically, by rote go into?
Take It Easy by the Eagles.
Well, and that's a great bit of advice for a lot of people in this world. And of course, it took Glenn Frey really to finish that song off. And some people don't realize that Jackson Browne wrote it and recorded it, but he just couldn't get it right. And the Eagles were the ones that popularized it. John, what are some of the best concerts you've seen over the years?
Well, I've always been a price coward when it comes to concerts to an extent. I saw Billy Joel about 5 years ago in Raleigh, and I thought, I'm a child of the 70s, and I thought that was really, really, really good. Recently, I saw Eric Church, and I thought that was great. We went to Philadelphia a couple years ago and saw Luke Combs, Riley Green, and Lainey Wilson, and we saw Lainey Wilson right before she really blew up.
Wow.
And that was great. But I've spent more time going to places like the Lincoln Theater and gosh, I can't remember the name of the place down in Wilmington. They got one there and they got one in Winston-Salem, owned by the same folks. But I love smaller venues and I love cold beer. So that generally helps. That helps.
Absolutely. It was something Claudia and I both had in our background before we met. And then and then we went to a small club and then large concert shows. And then the kids came along, and for about 12 or 15 years we didn't. But then we figured out, well, when North Carolina banned indoor smoking in restaurants and in spaces, we thought, and then a lot of the clubs started opening up all ages shows, and we started taking Catherine and Oliver to, not just outdoor shows, but indoor shows when they were in middle school and high school, and it opened it back up. And I think for us, one of the things, a really, really special moment was all over the years, I've always loved Bruce Springsteen, but never saw him. But a couple years ago, he played in Greensboro. And as you know, when you're trying to get 4 schedules together, it's hard. But we got the 4 of us, 2 grown kids, and Claudia and I, we got to see the boss in that room. And you want to talk about somebody that you're there with 22,000 of your best buddies that night, and he feels like he's talking to you. It was just really, really.
I would think that would be great. I've never seen the boss. As I said, I regret so much that I never saw the Eagles before Glenn Frey died. But it seemed like every time the price would come out, seemed like it was always just in excess of what I thought I could afford to pay at the time.
Part of your job is speaking in front of people. Whether you're speaking to a jury or the judge, but you're also very comfortable in front of a microphone. And for a number of years now, you've been a regular on podcasts out of Kinston. Tell us a little bit about your experience there.
So we have a local podcast. It's called the Brian Hanks Show, and it is It's basically a sports and local news show with an emphasis more on the sports, a lot of local sports. And I did, the first time I was on it, I've got a friend of mine in Pinehurst who's a golf pro and a teacher. His name is Kelly Mitchum,
Mm-hmm.
and he does the Cradle Solstice. I call it a golf-a-thon, but on the 21st of December every year, you can, or back then he's changed the format a little bit since then, but you could sign up and you would get pledges and you would go out there and play as many holes as you could play in the day, beginning at 7:21 and ending at 5:11 in the afternoon on the Cradle, the short course.
Right.
And so in advance of that, Brian wanted me to come on his show. And it's a lot of fun. And I've been on his show 10 or 12 times since then, usually in and around and prior to major golf championships. And because golf is kind of a niche sport, it's not something that I'll, at least every week, would be worth talking about. But around the major championships it is, and the Ryder Cup. And so I've been on it, like I said, 10 or 12 times. My friend Scott Crocker has also been on it with me. He's one of the ones that go overseas to play golf with me, and a former golf pro. And so it's been a lot of fun to do that. And I think we all are, and this is evidence of that by what we're doing today. The podcast industry has mushroomed considerably in the last several years. I don't listen to nearly as much music as I used to listen to. I listen to a lot of podcasts. And it's a great way for folks to learn about things and to communicate about things. And I enjoy having the opportunity to be on it with Brian.
The golfing world, if you dialed the clock back 12 months, U.S. Open week was in Pinehurst, just here west of us in Moore County. This year, the best golfers in the world are congregating in western Pennsylvania, Oakmont. What is it about that makes the U.S. Open so special, John?
Well, it's our country's national championship, and obviously we are. I mean, there are a lot of good players all over the world, but I think most of the best players are congregated here in the United States, either by virtue of they play the PGA Tour, which is primarily in the United States, or they're from the United States. The golf courses that the USGA has traditionally played, and I'm putting traditionally in air quotes, is as fine a collection of golf courses as there is in the world. And Oakmont is chief among them, and the venue that they're playing at this year. And Pinehurst is an anchor site, and it's been there 4 times since '99. So it's generally the toughest golf course. It generally requires the most. It's the sternest test of all facets of your golf game, and it is typically provided as much or more excitement. Everybody's got an argument as to why one major ought to be ranked higher than the other, and everybody would give you a different answer in terms of, well, if I could win one major, which major would it be? And maybe the number one might be the Masters.
Right.
But I think if you ask people what is generally the sternest test of golf, and as Sandy Tatum said, I'm on behalf of the USGA back in 1974 when they played it at Winged Foot, we're not here to embarrass the golfers. We're here to identify the best golfer. And I think the USGA does a good job at the U.S. Open of identifying the best golfer that week.
John, several of your fellow Campbell golf alumni have competed in major championships. David Mathis, Brad Fritsch, Jesper Svensson, Ben Polland in the PGA Championship a number of times. What does it mean to you to be part of that lineage of, and it's your alma mater?
Or it makes me very proud. I alluded to this by virtue of the fact of what's going on here in the university from an infrastructure and socialization aspect since I was here. The same can be said of the golf team. They had some glory years in the 1960s and early 70s. There was a lull. Hoggy Davis was the coach. He died. The program was kind of wallowing around, and my crowd was really the first crowd that had really been recruited once the program became an NCAA Division I program, to really try to get it moving forward. I can't say enough good things about what John Crooks has done for this place. I don't know Coach Crooks that well and didn't get to play for him. And I love playing for the coaches that I did, but I would have loved to have played for him also. And the players that have come along and taken that program forward from there, I couldn't be more proud of them. I was as you know, I lived not far from Cutter Creek Golf Club, and I'm a member there. And I had the good fortune of being home and being able to go out there this spring and watch the Fighting Camels tee off the last round of a tournament they won. And the quality of player, the quality of person, it makes me proud that they are doing what they do. I think I texted you and said to you, it's a good thing that I didn't show up now, because I'd be riding the pine. Those gentlemen are good players, and they work hard at it, and they have taken the program to new heights. Matt Moot, who we play with today, is a great guy and a good player and a good coach. It is all of the golf program is the sum of its parts, and there have been some really, really great parts over the years that have made it into something that I think as an alum, I'm very proud of.
John, you're also a member of our AD Hannah Bazemore's advisory board. Tell us a little bit about that group and what you all do.
So we are an advisory board, and we're a sounding board, and we have a number of people on that board who have been involved in Campbell athletics, in either as players or in some other capacity as a booster. And we meet 3 to 4 times a year. We offer advice. The big issues that we talk about lately are transfer portal issues and name, image, and likeness issues. And Campbell is, no better or worse than anybody else in terms of trying to deal with those issues those issues evolve almost faster than we can evolve with them. But it's a very, very collegial group. We all care deeply about the university. We're all doing what we can to try to help the university. Hannah kind of leads the group, and she is doing a fantastic job. It's tough. It's tough being where we are, because we're kind of twixt in between, in the sense of we are having to deal with the name, image, and likeness and transfer portal issues, but we're not at the top of the food chain. And so learning to adapt and survive where we are on the food chain is something that we're all having to learn to deal with. And I feel fortunate to have an opportunity to be involved. I care about this place, and I certainly want to see it do well. And you've got some good, practical, experienced business people that care about the university, that are interested and spend time on that committee, and I'm glad to be part of it.
What inspires your generosity to your alma mater?
Well, I think as you get older, I mean, when you get out of school and you've got to get your career started, it's kind of like when you're 18 years old and you're trying to hit your golf balls. I mean, you're just focused on what you're trying to do. But at some point you get to a point in life where you realize that kind of like the turtle on the fence post, it didn't get there by itself. It had some help, and we've all had a lot of help if we've gotten anywhere in life. And for me, Campbell has been an important part of my life in 2 ways. Number one, it was a great undergraduate experience, and I was so glad to participate on the golf team, and I've gotten so much out of that, and I couldn't be more grateful for that. But on the other hand, as Dr. Wallace used to say, I'm a double dipper. And so I have the law school experience on which I can rely, and that's helped me professionally, because that's what I've done as part of all of my professional life. But as I alluded to you, I had some lucky breaks along the way. Wendell Carr, Jerry Smith, Danny Roberts, Doug Gordon, Pat Hetrick. And I, if as I said earlier, you got a duty to put a little bit of wood back on the community wood pile, and I think that we all have a duty to do what we can within the means that we have to try to help others behind us have the same experiences and lucky breaks and opportunities for success that we've had.
Let's wrap up with a few questions I always like to ask my friends in golf. Who makes up your ideal foursome? And if you have to go to 5, including you, we'll make sure the Ranger isn't watching.
Well, if from a professional golfer perspective, I'd love to play with Bobby Jones. I'd love to play with Tom Watson. I'd love to play with Walter Hagen. And I'd like to play with Ben Hogan. That would be 4, and I'd be the 5th.
What's the most difficult course you've played?
It's probably a tie between Spyglass Hill and Carnoustie.
Okay. I had an interesting conversation recently with asked that same question to Henrik Bjelke, who just won the CAA championship as a senior this past spring, and he said he doesn't consider about all the different courses he's played. One's tougher than the other. It depends on the conditions.
Well, that's true.
Even more so than that. And I had never really even thought about that, because you think about some things as just being monumental challenges. But he says, no, it's really what the weather's like, or how the greens are rolling or something like that. And I'd never really thought about that. And what do they say out of the mouths of babes or 22, 23-year-old young people? They'll tell you that.
I think it'd be nice to ask him that question in about 40 years and see what he says.
Absolutely. How about your favorite course? Can you?
It's hard. We played one of them today. I like Keith Hills a lot. I've always enjoyed playing that place. But again, I'm going to give you a tie. It's going to be Waterville, Ireland, Waterville Golf Club, and Royal Dornoch.
Okay. Is there one on your bucket list out there that you got your eyes on that you really would like to play?
I think I'd like to go to Bandon Dunes. I haven't been to Bandon Dunes yet. I mean, I could say something like Pine Valley or something, but that's highly unlikely I'll ever get on that place. But yeah, Bandon Dunes is something doable, and I'd really like to go play.
And the Pacific Northwest coast is absolutely gorgeous area. John, what's the best piece of golf advice you've ever been given? Best golf tip or whatever.
I mean, it sounds a little Jimmy Valvano-like, but you just cannot give up, in the sense of you just don't ever know when the worm's going to turn and things are going to click. I have literally walked off a practice tee to tee up on the first tee of a golf tournament and wondered where I was going to hit the golf ball on that first tee, and had things fall into place and play really good rounds of golf. I have literally left my house going to the golf course or going on a golf trip thinking, I got to figure out something between now and then, or else I might embarrass myself. I have played rounds of golf where I get off to a poor start, and that something happens and things click and I get it back after that. You've got to be persistent, and you've got to keep your wits about you. And if you don't do that, you know in the world you can possibly succeed at it. So I just say to people, you just got to keep at it, because you just don't ever know when things might turn. And you see that all the time on the PGA Tour. Somebody will miss 3 cuts, and the next week they win a golf tournament. It's just the way it is.
Finally, John, can you put into words how Campbell University and the Buies Creek community have impacted your life?
I don't know that there's anything that I've been exposed to that hasn't impacted my life more. It has, when you think about what you looked like when you arrived in Buies Creek when I was 18 years of age in 1980, what I looked like when I left in 84, what I looked like when I came back in 86, and what I looked like in 89, and then what I've been able to do with all of that over the last 36 years. And that I don't mean that to sound braggartly. I'm just saying that I couldn't have done any of it without having the training and the experiences that I've had here in Bowie's Creek, and with Campbell University. And I realize the law school's in Raleigh now, but when I was here, it was in Bowie's Creek. Um, there's nothing in my life that has had more of an impact on me than that.
I'm Stan Cole, and our guest today on Tales from the Creek has been two-time Campbell grad and former golf standout John Marshall. Thank you, John, for sharing your Tales from the Creek.
Thank you, Stan.